4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Actually, not as live as it probably should be. Still out of town for the holidays, but sitting in the office working on ideas for shows to pre-record that will play for you guys when I'm gone. And I was researching ideas for New Year's resolutions for taxi members and musicians in general who are into sync. And I was using ChatGPT to see what kind of ideas it offered up. And I decided rather than picking just like 3 of them or 5 of them, I'm going to go down the entire list of things that ChatGPT suggested and decided just to do a show right here today on a Friday afternoon at 3:52 p.m. in Los Angeles. Didn't shave today, so one of the rare times you'll ever see me on a Taxi TV. Not clean shaven. I do have the official company colors on today. So I was appropriately dressed, although white is a little rough on the white balance for the camera, but looks pretty good. Anyway, I hope you guys had a great Christmas and great Hanukkah, and that you're enjoying some family time during the holiday season. And, you know, we are right around the corner from 2025, a couple days away. Hard to believe, isn't it? That means we've been in this office now for 25 years. Can't believe I'm walking through the same set of doors for 25 years, but I have. It's a pretty homey office, got to say, pretty comfortable. We like it. Although for the 2 years that we were remote during COVID, that worked out really well as well. So anyway, I'm just going to go through these in the order that they were spit out, and you guys can pick and choose what you think is appropriate for you. Oh, excuse me, I just had a little bit of Red Bull before starting, this impromptu episode, and it is now coming back to haunt me. Anyway, without any further ado, let's start. New Year's resolutions for musicians pursuing sync success with taxi music. And remember, the ideas were generated by ChatGPT. What I'm going to say in regard to them, my more elaborative comments are all me, just winging it right now. ChatGPT didn't write these answers, just the topics. Number 1. Set submission goals. ChatGPT thinks that you should submit at least 2 high-quality tracks to taxi listings every week. That would be 104 submissions a year. That's too much. ChatGPT is wrong about this one. It does tend to hallucinate from time to time, but you know what? Submission goals, setting some sort of submission goal, I believe is important because it's easy to fall into a rut where you go, I don't feel like making another cue or doing another song, and you don't submit. You get out of practice and you just fail to do it. I mean, finally, if you're a taxi member, you probably already know that this is a very realistic way to get into the industry. You've seen tons of your fellow members who've done it. The most recent taxi newsletter that probably went out like yesterday or the day before, from the time you're seeing this, is going to have a little video that I shot with my cell phone at the very end of the rally. I'd say the ballroom was probably 2/3 full. Some of the people had to fly home on Sunday so that they could be at work on Monday, but the ballroom was pretty full. And I turned around and said to the audience, how many of you have gotten placements through taxi? And everybody was shocked. It was like 50 or 60% of the people, maybe more, stood up. You'll see it in the newsletter. People stood up. I got a placement. And I was so thrilled because easily half of the people that were at the road rally this year were first-time attendees, which usually means that they're pretty new members. So for people pretty early in their taxi trajectory to already be getting placements was incredibly satisfying, heartwarming, just encouraging to me. I was really proud in that moment, proud of them, proud of my team here, proud of us as a company. So anyway, getting back to setting submission goals, I honestly don't know that you could say, okay, I'm going to submit one thing a week. I think a more appropriate goal is to set a goal for how many instrumental cues you're going to crank out in a week. That's something. Oh, somebody's car alarm is going off out there. I hear that all the time from our successful members, that at some point they decided to get serious and they said, okay, I am going to do 2 cues a week, which is very doable. I mean, instrumental cues don't have to be big, elaborate, orchestral hybrid trailer cues. That's probably the most time consuming of all the different types of cues, I would think. But, just a simple little acoustic guitar, dobro, dusty country road kind of stuff. Could be kind of a sciencey sounding womp bum 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 bum, that kind of thing. Just simple cues. I always say this, and I hope people are listening when I say they're generally not looking for the best composer. They're not looking for the most impressive composer. They're not looking for composer of the year. They're looking for cues, and I'm talking they means music libraries, production music libraries. They're looking for music that when it goes in their catalog that a lot of their customers will actually have a need for. So that's your goal, is to pick a certain thing that is either right on target with the genre that you're good at or something that is genre adjacent, that's very close to what you do. Like if you're a country songwriter, I always say you can definitely do country instrumental cues. You could do Americana instrumental cues. You could do simple little Duck Dynasty. I always use this example. Forgive me if you've heard it 10 times before, but just arpeggiated strums on an acoustic guitar and a little dobro, you're done. You are done. You don't need to use 16 or 18 or 24 tracks or 104 tracks. Literally 2, 3, 4 tracks, and you've nailed the cue. So that's what I'm saying, is start out with what you know and set a goal for productivity, not for the number of times that you pitch to Taxi. I just don't like that idea. But I love the idea of how many tracks you can spit out in a week. So start with what's comfortable, start with what's familiar, start with what is easy. Don't beat it to death. Again, don't try and win Composer of the Year. Think about the end user. Would this work in that kind of show? Could it also work in that kind of scene in a movie? Could it possibly even work in a TV commercial? That's what you want to do, is create instrumental tracks or cues that have a pretty wide range of applicability, not just in your head, but in the end user's heads. There you go. All right. Number 2. Oh, I love this one. Read Taxi's listings carefully. If you were part of our A&R team, one of the screeners, part of the A&R staff here at Taxi World headquarters, you would know, you would venture an educated guess that a lot of people don't really read the listings that carefully. First of all, you should open them and read them every day. I know it's like, oh gosh, there's another email from Taxi, but if you don't see what they're asking for, then you won't create music for those opportunities. You won't submit to those opportunities. You have no chance of getting forwarded if you don't submit. And if you don't submit, you don't get forwarded. You have no chance of signing a deal, landing in somebody's catalog. And if you're not in the catalog, then you have no chance of one of their clients choosing your music for their TV show, feature film, or TV commercial. So there you go. Read the listings every day. Let them inspire you. Sometimes maybe you'll see something that isn't exactly in a genre that you do, but you look at it and go, that's not going to be that different from the genre that I already do. Maybe I should, step out a little bit and try that one. So read the listings every day. And then when you're thinking about submitting for something, read it really carefully, because like I mentioned in the beginning of this, the staff would tell you, the screeners would tell you, that it's quite amazing when you listen to the music that comes in for some of the listings, and this happens quite a bit. You think to yourself, is there any way that this member actually read the listing? Because the music they sent doesn't really sound anything like what the listing asked for, and it doesn't sound anything like the references. So, did they submit to the wrong thing? Did they think that, oh, my thing is just so good it doesn't matter if it doesn't fit the brief, I'm going to send it anyway, and they will forward it because they recognize how talented I am, and then the library will sign up because they recognize that I am the most amazing composer in the world, and then the film and TV people will end up using my music even though it's not what they're looking for because I am just so freaking amazing. Doesn't happen. It really, really doesn't happen that way. So read the listings carefully. Okay. Ooh, I like the next one. The next New Year's resolution is use your references wisely. Use the references in taxis listings wisely. Generally speaking, a pretty healthy percentage of new members start out thinking that their job is to listen to the references and try and copy them. And that's not recommended. It's not kosher. It's not cool. I mean, no, you wouldn't want your music copied, right? But the references, we spend a lot of time and energy in and amongst our own staff and working with our clients who generally give us at least one of the references. They may give us one and then we'll find two more. So ultimately, you're supposed to listen to the references and kind of triangulate among them. Are they all guitar based? Are they rock sounding guitars, like crunchy guitars? Are they all in a similar range of BPMs? Are they all 120 BPM or just north or south of that? That's another clue. Do they all have kind of an overall rock sound with kind of a little bit of nasty rock attitude? There's another clue for you. How long are they generally? Are they all about 1.5 to 2 minutes? There's yet another clue. So what you're looking for is commonality. The things they have in common, one of the other things I often mention when I'm talking about this is what are the keys? Is it a major key or a minor key? Do all three of the references sound fairly emotional, uplifting, or do they sound dark and haunting? So all those clues are out there for you. And while you're listening to the refs and you're noticing these commonalities, make a little bullet point list. Tape it to the side of your computer screen. So when you're working on that piece of music, you've got a little reminder there right in front of your face that reminds you of what you're trying to accomplish, what your goal is. So that's my advice for how to use the references wisely. The next New Year's resolution. Ooh, this is another good one. Good job, ChatGPT. Actively use the feedback. I am proud of taxi members who use the feedback well. I'm envious because I don't know that I could swallow that jagged little pill as easily as some of our members do. And most members who have learned how to incorporate the feedback will admit that in the beginning it's like, what do you know, Mr. or Mrs. Taxi Screener? How do I even know you're qualified to judge my music? So they go through a thing where they think it's the screener's fault, their music was brilliant and it should have been forwarded, and yes, it's all the screener's fault. Eventually, people turn a corner. They become more realistic and they realize that the screener wasn't wrong. Maybe the screeners aren't right 100% of the time, but they're right an awful lot. And they're trying to be helpful. There is a misconception, especially among newer members, that the screeners are trying to find a reason to not forward your music, which could not be further from the truth. It's actually a lot easier for a screener to check the forward box and write, hey man, this is awesome, you're getting forwarded, than it is to expound on why you're not getting forwarded. But all the screeners are musicians. I would say the vast majority of them, over 33 years, have been people that have had pitched music, whether to record labels or film and TV opportunities. They know what rejection feels like, and they don't like it any more than you like it, I guarantee you. So just know that you at least have a sympathetic ear, but they can't forward you when the music isn't right for the pitch. Or if there's something wrong with it. So look for the feedback that comes with every submission if you don't get forwarded, and take that feedback and utilize it. Maybe don't pay much attention to it the day you get it, because you're going to feel a little prickly when you first see that you didn't get forwarded. But members who are successful, again, I get so much great advice from them. They tell me that they look 2 or 3 days later and they go, the screener's not wrong about that. It does need more dynamics as the piece progresses, or there's not an obvious emotion in this piece, or the drums don't feel like they're locked with the bass and it's kind of obvious. Whatever feedback you're getting, know that the screeners are giving it an effort to help you become better. And so don't reject it out of hand. Just know that. They're like a coach. They're like a football coach, or a gymnastics coach, or a yoga instructor. They want you to succeed at your goal. They want you to be happy with Taxi. And frankly, they want to keep their job. So just know that they are going to keep giving you feedback that should be useful and probably help you move forward a bit. I need to adjust my levels a little bit. I'm a little bit low today. There we go. Okay, next thing is master instrumental cues. It is the easiest way to break into the film and TV side of the music industry. Simple instrumental cues. As I mentioned earlier, if you're comfortable in the country genre, there's so many neighboring genres that you already have the skills for. You can already record an acoustic guitar. I'm sure you could use that same microphone, probably the same EQ and the same compressor to record, a Coracine bottle on a dobro, or even just, on an acoustic guitar. Just add a slide part. So start with what you're comfortable with, what comes easy to you. As I mentioned in an earlier segment on the show today, don't try and climb Mount Everest the first time you put on your climbing shoes, okay? Start with a 100-foot hill. And so over time, you're going to get really good at whatever that initial genre is. Then take on a neighboring genre. And then maybe take on something, let's say you're a keyboard player or you're a guitar player, but you also play keyboards. Guitar is your strength. Keyboard is like, not so bad, but it's not your strong suit. Maybe, after you nail 2 or 3 genres and you're cranking out really good cues, maybe that's time to spread your wings a little bit and try some keyboard cues. Again, they don't have to be 50 tracks. They can oftentimes be just a handful of tracks. So many members over the almost 33 years we've been in business have told me time and time again that they're always amazed that it is the simplest, most sparse, least complicated cues that they make that are the ones that make them the most money. Again, don't try and be composer of the year. Try and compose music that libraries would want to sign because their clients would want to use it. That's your goal. And once you master instrumental cues, then at some point, maybe after 6 months or a year of doing instrumentals, maybe then it's time to move on to doing songs for film and TV. And you could start networking in the background while you're working on the instrumental stuff vis-a-vis the Taxi Forum at forums.taxi.com. The Road Rally, which happens the first weekend of every November, the chat room on Taxi TV. There's so many ways to meet other members that either play instruments that you don't, or they're great top liners or great at just writing lyrics. So get to know those people, so when the time comes that you're ready to progress or graduate from doing only instrumental cues and you want to start doing songs, you've already got the people in your network that you can lean on to do things for those songs that you may not. For instance, let's say you want to do a song for a taxi listing and it asks for female vocals, and you're a dude. And don't use AI to make it come out sounding like a female. That's not kosher. Someday it may be, but for right now it's not. So this is a chance for you to start thinking now while you're building up your chops, doing the instrumental things, that when you move on to songs, oh, I keep hearing this girl's name. Other people are using her to sing vocals. I should introduce myself, get to know her in the context of the forum or at the road rally or wherever, and just have enough of a relationship that you can reach out at some point and say, hey, by the way, here's a taxi listing that I know I can build a great track for. And probably come up with a decent lyric, but would you be interested in collaborating on the lyric and singing on this one? So plan ahead. Don't wait until a week before the song is due and then start looking for your female vocalist. And of course, that applies to stuff other than just vocals, but you get the idea. The next one, I'm going to not skip over it, but gloss over it. Again, these are all suggested by ChatGPT, who did a pretty good job. Broaden your skill set. Experiment with new genres and production techniques that are frequently requested in taxi listings. So, I already talked about picking neighboring or adjacent genres and broadening your skill set by doing that. Just talked about doing broadening your skill set, moving on to songs after you've mastered doing instrumental cues, but production techniques. How do you broaden your skill set with production techniques? Honestly, it's one of the most persistent problems that taxi members have had over the years, is whatever era they grew up loving music, and when they started writing music and recording and producing music at home, they tend to get stuck in that era. It's completely understandable, but it makes your music less useful, less desirable for the industry. Certainly there are times where they want stuff that sounds like the 80s or 90s, 60s, 70s, whatever. But if you see a listing that asks for modern indie alt singer-songwriters, they're not looking for James Taylor. So the thing to do is go on Spotify. First of all, listen to the references in the listing. Then take those references, plug them into Spotify, and look for similar artists and immerse yourself in that genre. And then start making notes about, are the drum patterns different? Do they use little to no reverb, because that's a thing right now, versus back in the day of drenching stuff in reverb? Do the guitars sound super clean or not super clean? The stuff I tend to write, or produce, I'm putting myself in your shoes. I might use like a phasey sounding clean guitar sound. Oops, gotta kill my email. And that may not be happening, maybe that chorusy, phasey guitar sound is a relic from the past. So get over it, move ahead. Well, never before in the history of the world, let alone the music industry or musician land, have you had as many cool ways to get yourself current. It's out there. Everything you need to know is out there. You just have to not be lazy or procrastinate and go do the work. And it's fun work. It's music. It's not like you're studying for a history exam, for God's sake. So then once you hear it and become familiar and you've made notes, again, make notes about the chord changes, make notes about the keys, notice the intervals in the melodies. Those change with every decade, at least to some extent. All those little things, then sit down and make one. And know that the first one you make probably won't be that good, but it won't be terrible either, because you're going to have the foundation of already knowing how to do instrumental cues. So your track will at least be like well recorded and well produced. But now we're talking about getting into the details, things like reverb or delays, or how prominent are the drums? What do the drums sound like? Like, for instance, back in the day, I was a little bit famous, if I could pat myself on the back, with my other engineer friends. They all thought that I got great drum sounds and I could get them really quickly. I don't hear a lot of that style of drum sounds in today's music. But if you needed somebody to record drums like on a Doobie Brothers record. I could do that. That era, and I'm not talking about just yacht rock, but I first started in the studio. I can never remember, it was late '74 or early 1975, and I finally quit making records probably around 1987, somewhere around 83. I started doing audio post-production so I could have a more normal work life and be home to, tuck the kids in at night or eat dinner with the family sort of stuff. But I would still occasionally do a record. So I think probably the last like major label record I worked on was, gosh, I don't even, the late 80s, maybe, like 86, 87, I think. It was one for like Warner Brothers UK and another one for Polydor, Polygram, Poly something. Maybe it was Pollyanna. I'm not sure. Anyway, my point being that the sounds I got then were really good and really appropriate for the era. And that's what I know how to do. But if I were to start making records again tomorrow, people, unless they wanted that sound, that dated sound, they would probably be a little bit less than enthused about the sounds I was getting for them, even though back in the day they would have been considered top quality, super professional, great sounding sounds. So I would have to study. I mean, snare drum sounds today, I'm used to boosh kind of snare drum sound. Nowadays they sound thinner, they sound a little raspier, they sound more machine-like, they don't sound as organic and made from like, remember the Black Beauty snares? They were pretty deep and brass shell painted black, if memory serves. That was by far my favorite snare. And any chance I had to use a Black Beauty, and almost anything I was working on, excuse me, always start, the best sounds always sound great at the source. Trying to take an instrument that sounds kind of crappy and make it sound amazing, you know what they say, you can polish a turd, right? Sorry, a little frog in my throat. Now you're going to get to hear me have a rock star burp. Okay. Anyway, so broaden your skill set. Experiment with new genres. We've talked about production techniques, engineering techniques. That's where you can broaden. Oh, you're not going to like this next one. I'm not sure I like it either. Next suggestion from ChatGPT for New Year's resolutions for musicians who are taxi members that make music for sync is organize your catalog. I know, it's housekeeping. It's not fun. None of us like washing the sheets, changing the bedclothes. None of us like emptying the dishwasher, putting stuff away in the cabinet. It's not fun. But you know what? It will make you a better composer / artist / songwriter / producer. Those are good habits to have. And by doing those things routinely, first of all, you're making your music more accessible for the industry. Because, here comes that rock star burp, sorry. Excuse me. The more easily you can find your music, the more effectively you'll be able to pitch it. And once you become a little more advanced and you start doing alt mixes or stems, you want to have that stuff well organized, and you want to have all your writer splits down. You want to have keywords, all that stuff, because all that stuff goes into that stew of things that make your music more desirable, more accessible, and more signable. So, as much as it's a pain in the butt, I have to agree with ChatGPT on that one. Organize your catalog. And there's some great tools out there that you've seen at the Road Rally, here on Taxi TV. Composer Catalog by Keith LeBrant is great. Track Stage, which was a big hit at the Road Rally. Oh gosh, I can't think of the name of it. There's one other by one of our longtime members. I'm so sorry, I can't think of it. But this whole episode is being done on a wing and a prayer, so sorry for bad preparation. All right. The next New Year's resolution is a great one. And even though it says invest in education, I'm not saying that you have to invest much money in your education. You can invest your time. Watch Taxi TV episodes. Hey, you're watching one right now. Good for you. Watch them all the time. Again, I hear this from our most successful members. They all say the same things, and one of the things they say most frequently is Taxi TV. What an incredible resource. I've learned so much. I paid attention to the feedback from the members from the screeners once I got over the sting. I went to the road rally. Holy smokes, was that amazing. I learned so much. I read the taxi newsletter, which not enough people do, but there's some great stuff in our newsletter, and it's all focused information. You don't have to go fishing for what's applicable because we go to great lengths to make sure that all that information is applicable to you. So invest the time in educating yourself. Read the books. Read any of Dean Crapane's amazing books. Read Steve Barden's book. You literally should not even be attempting to be in the industry unless you've read Dean Crapane's books, Demystifying the Q and Demystifying the Genre. There's a new one, relatively new, called Q Tips, CUE space tips. Steve Barden's book, I don't have one. Hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, Barden's book. Hello, I'm back. Barden's book is Writing Production Music for TV by Steve Barden, longtime taxi member. Amazing book. Dean Crapane's books. I never recommend anything unless I was standing there with you when you got it and read it. You know, I'm not going to put my reputation on the line to help them sell $20 worth of books. I'm putting my reputation on the line because I believe these tools are amazing. So for a small investment, yes, Taxi TV is free. Yes, the Taxi newsletter is free and available to anybody. Yes, the Taxi forum is free and available to anybody at no cost. But these books, which are generally in the $25, $30 range, they're life-altering. And virtually all of them have been written by people in the taxi orbit. So the information is really targeted at what you want to do. Best-selling book, Shortcuts to Hit Songwriting by Robin Frederick. She was the head screener at Taxi for years. And she was a regular screener before she became the head screener. People love this book. I have never had one person tell me that they didn't love this book. And I am the publisher, so I will make a couple of dollars if you buy one of those, just being completely transparent. And now, speaking of being transparent, I'm holding up a book with a lime green cover, which is matching my green screen, which means you can see through the cover. How interesting. And you can also see the word sample that I wrote on there. Anyway, Shortcuts to Songwriting for Film and TV. Nobody has ever put out another book about songwriting for film and TV. And most people think, well, if I can write songs for records and radio, I can write songs for film and TV. You'll get lucky some of the time, but it's actually somewhat, I personally would venture to say it might be 30% easier to write a song for film and TV than it is to write a song for a record, maybe even 50% easier. But you won't know what those differences are and how to accomplish those things unless you read that book, or you watch a lot of Taxi TV, or you go on the forum, or you go to the road rally and hear one of Robin's presentations. So there you go. I don't necessarily agree with this next New Year's resolution that my friend ChatGPT suggested topically for this episode. Upgrade your tools. Enhance your studio setup with better plugins, virtual instruments, and gear to produce high-quality recordings. Most of you already have exactly what you need, and please don't run out and spend a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 on stuff you don't need. And I'm going to mention somebody who I just mentioned a minute ago, but I mentioned in many, many episodes, and that is a very good friend of mine, a longtime taxi member, somebody who is admired and respected by virtually all taxi members who know him, Dean Crepane. Dean laughably has a pretty crappy setup at home. He does. He would tell you that. If he were sitting here with me right now, we'd be laughing about it. He uses very old samples of software. He doesn't have anything fancy, and yet he is probably one of our highest earning members with the longest history of success in both instrumentals and songs. So he has proved that you don't need to spend a lot of money on gear or sample libraries or plugins. You just have to know how to use what you've got really well. And the way you learn that is by using it repetitively. The more you use it, the better you get. It's like riding a bicycle. It's like driving a car. It's like playing a guitar. Everything gets easier and better the more you do it. So I'm going to have to disagree with ChatGPT on this one. Yes, don't use, Dean Crepane probably does use a 20-year-old string library. I certainly wouldn't run out and buy a multi-$1,000 string library unless you're already pretty darn adept at doing big orchestral cues and you've had a lot of things signed, a lot of things forwarded, signed, and ultimately placed, and you're just trying to up your game, and the music you've made already is bringing in some income. Should you reinvest in yourself, maybe an upgrade to a better library? Yeah, you could. But for the vast majority of our members, I don't know, you don't need 30 different compressor plugins. Frankly, and I'm saying this as a seasoned engineer with a pretty respectable track record in the studio, I started messing around with Logic maybe 6 months before the COVID lockdown. And during the COVID lockdown, I played around with it. I really didn't use it, more than an hour or two at a time. But I did go exploring with all the plugins that came standard for free with Logic. And I've got to tell you, I could absolutely make platinum records all day long. I kid you not. I mean this 100%. I was so impressed with the plugins that come standard with Logic that did I need to go download, a Waves LA 2A? No. I did because I used to have the real thing and I wanted to play with it. So yeah, it's fun. It wasn't a lot of money. It was like $35, so I could justify it. But my point is that you don't need that stuff. I could give you a $5,000 hardware compressor that any engineer would drool over. I could just give it to you, and you could use it all day long and become really proficient at it, at using it. But you know what? It is not going to get one piece of music signed 1 minute faster than when you were using a $35 plug-in version of it or using something else altogether. The gear does, generally speaking, not make you get any closer to selling one more record, getting one more stream, getting one more placement in a TV show. Training your ear so that you know how to balance a mix well does. Knowing how to proficiently use any compressor does. But the difference between something like, oh my God, I love this compressor versus that's a good everyday, workable compressor, not going to generate one more dollar or make you one iota more famous or more desirable for libraries to use with, to sign. Libraries, production music libraries, music publishers, people in the film and TV side of the industry, they sign your music because they hear that it has the potential to get used by many of their clients. Having a really incredible compressor or equalizer or anything really doesn't move you any closer to that goal. So don't get carried away and don't listen to ChatGPT's suggestion on upgrading your tools. It's not mandatory. You know what? For a lot of us, it's the easiest road to go down. Honey, I just bought a new compressor. I really needed it to make my music better. Okay. All right. I do love this next suggestion, so I want to thank ChatGPT for spitting out this New Year's resolution. Attend the Taxi Road Rally. I know you're all sick of hearing me talk about it, but if you talk to any of the people who went to the most recent road rally, which was first weekend of this past November of 2024, they would tell you that you really missed out on opportunities on so many levels. Networking, off the chart. Level of education on just about any topic you could want, off the chart. It's just, we see careers. People come to the road rally. They've been a member for 9 months or a year. Maybe they've never been to another road rally before, and they finally got sick of me begging them to come. And they said, what the hell? And they saved up for the plane ticket and the hotel. They were a little nervous about going all the way to Los Angeles and being in a hotel with a bunch of other people they don't know. Are they going to feel like a wallflower? Are they going to feel uncomfortable? How will they know the right classes or panels to go to? Are they going to be sitting all alone at a table eating their lunch? Or standing, in the corner of the bar nursing a beer all night long? No. They are going to find that before they even get their badge at registration, that they will have made friends. Everybody who goes to the road rally would tell you that is 100% true. I'm not exaggerating that, even a little tiny bit. So it's easy, and you'll feel warm and fuzzy and very welcome, downright excited. I have people that come up to me Thursday night. The only things that happen on Thursday evening, afternoon and evening, are going through the registration line to get your badge, and then getting your one-to-one mentor, the mentor of your choice, signed up for that, and then going to the open mic or the jam, or just hanging out in the bar and meeting other members. But all evening long, Thursday, starting from 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Anytime I'm walking through the hotel, taxi members come up and grab me, literally this is so awesome. And I look at them and say, how can it be awesome? You've done nothing but stand in a line waiting to get your badge. And they go, I know, but the people are so awesome. It's everything you said it was. It's just comfortable, and the energy is amazing, and I feel like I'm amongst my own people, and I'm already meeting collaborators, and I'm learning so much. I said, how could you learn anything? You've done nothing but stand in a line. And they said, well, I was standing in line next to somebody that's been a member for 7 years. They gave me so many great tips about how to get more submissions through the screeners. They gave me so many more tips about how to write effective instrumental cues. They gave me so many more tips about which classes they've been to in the past that are the best ones to go to. So bottom line is the road rally. It is literally one of the most important things you can do. And I know it's just so easy to sit on your butt and stay in your little comfort zone and don't risk anything. Don't come because, it might be a little hard to get to know people. It's not. It's really easy. And it's so much fun that even the most cynical, skeptical, fraidy cat in the world, at the end of the road rally, if you cornered them and walked up and said, so, was it worth it? Oh, yeah, it was so worth it. They love it. People literally don't want to go home at the end of the road rally, and I think you'll feel that way as well. So ChatGPT, thank you for suggesting that resolution. Making a note here, resolution. You tell me that it's Oops, I don't want to get a copyright strike or hurt anybody's ears. All right, this next one I'm going to skip over because there's so many better ones, and I've only got an hour and 55 minutes. 55 minutes, sorry. Develop your metadata skills. Yes, they're important. But first, learn how to make great instrumental cues, and then learn how to create great songs, all that stuff. But one thing I will say about metadata is you would be foolish to think that metadata doesn't matter and that it's all about that awesome piece of music you created. Doesn't matter if you got all that other businessy, like secretarial work done, because the music's just so good that the people in the industry won't care. They will. They love working with people that have their act together. So metadata is part of having your act together. So we'll do a more elaborate thing on that, giving it its own show one day. Next New Year's resolution for 2025 is collaborate with your peers. I gotta say, ChatGPT was pretty darn on the money with a lot of these. If I had to venture a shoot from the hip guess, I would say that 60 or 70% of the success that has happened for our members in aggregate over many, many years was true 20 years ago, is true 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and today, and it will be true tomorrow, and that is collaborate. I know you guys are pretty much isolated in your own bedroom that you've now turned into your studio, or some corner of your basement, or whatever, or Matt Vanderbo's tool shed in his backyard for many years. But you don't do it all. You don't sing well, or you don't play saxophone, or you're actually just not that coordinated. So for you to do like a tambourine overdub, not going to be that good. Meet collaborators at the Road Rally, in the chat room on Taxi TV, on the forum at forums.taxi.com, because these people at some point are going to be able to perform an instrument or a function or sing a vocal or write a lyric or even just tell you if your mix is well balanced. There's so many things that collaborators can help with, but the most important thing is if you want to know a way to fast track your way into the industry, collaboration might be my best advice for that. Yes, you can submit and hope that you get a forward and hope that the person your music goes to sends you an email or a phone call saying, I want to sign this piece of music, and that begets a more expansive relationship over the years. Yay. Or you could have met somebody standing in the registration line at the Road Rally or in this chat room on Taxi TV and end up collaborating with them because you play saxophone and they don't, and a sampled saxophone played by somebody who doesn't understand how saxophone players actually play their instrument is going to make a poor representation of a sax solo in a jazz piece, let's say. And lo and behold, that sax player that you met in this very chat room, calling out Paulie if he's in there today, that person might be in 7, 8, 9, 10 different catalogs already because they've been around for years. And they probably collaborated their way into some of those catalogs as well as through forwards from Taxi or meeting industry people at the Road Rally. So collaboration, you get to ride in on their coattails. Now, that doesn't mean you should walk up to people and go, hey, man, let's collaborate so I can meet the libraries that you're working with. No, it's got to be more organic, more sincere than that. I hate to sound so cynical, but there are some people that actually try and collaborate their way to success. When it happens organically, it's a beautiful thing. And you will build relationships because now, let's say, you collaborate with somebody like Paulie, who is a great saxophone player, and he's got deals with many, many catalogs, and you end up becoming a co-writer, collaborator on something that ends up in a catalog that where he's known the CEO of the company for 4 years already. That CEO might say, oh, who's this other person that's on there with you? Oh, that's Bobby James from Milwaukee. He's really talented. Man, that guy can top line with the best of them, blah, 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 blah. Oh, introduce us. That's how it happens. It really does. So ChatGPT, you got that New Year's resolution right. Collaborate with your peers. This one's not bad. resolution for 2025 for taxi members trying to make it in film and TV and general the broader sense of the or broader part of the industry, the record radio side. Perfect your mixes. You know what? I've asked Rob Shirelli this. Rob is my best friend. He's got 5 or 6 Grammys now, 100 gold and platinum records. He works with huge artists. He gets really upset with me when I mention who they are. They're really big. I mean, like artists that are known on a global basis, artists, some of them that have been around for many, many years. They're not somebody who just had one hit this year and they're kind of a momentary, they're big on TikTok right now. No, I'm talking about people like Ray Charles, that big, that impressive. He's worked with many, many artists at that level. And Rob always says the best way to get a great sounding mix is by not loading up your tracks with a bunch of crap. People tend to overproduce. They add too many parts, too many instruments, and probably you could justify every one of them. But how many ingredients go into making a great stew? If you put 5 ingredients in your stew, peas, carrots, potatoes, beef chunks, brown gravy, onions, salt, pepper, maybe a little garlic, that's enough. Now, if you start adding bean sprouts or jasmine root or all this other stuff, yeah, you can, but should you? No, because at some point the flavors end up competing with each other. The same is so true. This is an experienced engineer and producer telling you that the more stuff you put in there, the harder it is to mix. So maybe the number one way to improve your mixes is to put less stuff on your tracks. I've quoted my father many, many times over these many years on Taxi TV and at the Road Rally. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I'm going to say that one more time for those of you who are hearing disabled. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay? The less stuff you have, the easier it is to mix and make the parts less busy. If you want, this is a dated record, but a really good example of how to be really selective and sparse with your parts. Go listen to Saturday Night Fever by the Bee Gees. Go listen to any of the songs from the Bee Gees, like circa 1975 through 1980. Listen to a lot of that stuff, and you will be shocked at how simple the parts are, but how they all interact with each other and still leave air. And you listen to the mixes and you go, my God, it's literally like perfection, in my opinion. And I think, millions of other people that bought those records and loved their music would tend to agree with me on that. So do that. Go listen to, I'm trying to think of some other Bee Gees songs. Or even, here's one, Andy Gibb, the youngest of the 4 Gibb brothers, who was not actually in the band and sadly died at a young age. Andy Gibb did a song called Shadow Dancing. Check that out. Just listen to how sparse the parts are, how simple they are, how well they interact and coordinate with each other. That is the basis and the foundation of a great mix. Because you don't have to know so much about EQ and compression and delays and reverbs to try and get everything to sound spectacular, because in its natural element, it's able to reach the listener's ear because there's nothing in that same frequency range in that moment fighting with it. So a lot of people approach mixing, whether they realize this or not, from how do I fix this? How they're on a mission to repair rather than a mission to get out of the way and let the natural beauty of something shine through on its own. And the way to have that happen is just by using less parts that are less busy. I will also tell you that if you keep perfecting every little instrument while you're mixing it, I was absolutely guilty of this. It took me about a year of me making this mistake on a daily basis till I finally got smacked upside the head by somebody who knew more than I did, clearly, and they said, dude, you are working so hard to make that guitar sound amazing. Just worry about how it sounds in the context of the mix. But you've got it soloed, and you're sitting there and you're working on the compression, and you're remiking it out in the room and bringing it back into the console, and you're adding this kind of plate reverb on the left and chamber reverb on the right, and a 125 millisecond decay or delay going down the middle. You're doing all this stuff to it. Just bring up all the faders and ask yourself the question, can I hear the guitar well in this balance? And does it sound appropriate for this type of song in this genre and this mix? More often than not, you're going to find out it's 90% of the way there. And maybe all you have to do is just roll off a little bit of 400 hertz or 700 hertz, a little bit of low mid-range because of the key that the song is in and the octave the bass is playing in. That low mid-range part of the guitar is clashing a little bit or being masked by the bass. Or maybe the kick drum isn't doing that in your chest because the guitar is occupying that same frequency. So that's what I'm talking about. Just bring everything up and go, what do I really need to look at here? Rather than taking each instrument and trying to win a Grammy for the best tambourine sound or the best sax sound or the best Fender Rhodes sound. I am as guilty, if not more guilty, than anybody who's ever set foot in a pro studio of spending too much time going through that phase of my self-education as a mixer. So don't do what I did. The next New Year's resolution offered up by my buddy ChatGPT is embrace constructive criticism. I'm laughing at myself on the inside as I'm saying this to you. Ask my wife, ask my 4 daughters, thank you very much, or any of my family members. I have a hard time accepting criticism. I'm going to be honest about it. I'm a very hardworking person. I put a lot of thought into what I do. I research stuff. I think that I make excellent decisions 100% of the time and always do the right thing, and I'm just in love with myself. So therefore, when somebody says, Michael, if you changed that headline in your ad, just change that one word. I'm like, dude, I really have read 800 marketing books, and probably 10 or 20% of those are just on writing subject lines, headlines, and first sentences of paragraphs, things like that. I love it. To me, that is like for you becoming an incredibly good guitar player or some other analog. But I have a hard time accepting constructive criticism. You know what? Accepting constructive criticism about Taxi has been particularly hard for me because this company is so near and dear to my heart. I came up with the idea. I fought hard to get this company off the launching pad, and I've fought hard for 33 years to keep it thriving. And the reason I'm sensitive about criticism about Taxi is that it's really easy for somebody on the outside to go, hey, you guys should give away, or you should make the submission fees $1. I want to punch them when people say stuff like that. They don't know what it costs to run this company. They don't know that the screeners are getting paid $30 an hour. This is probably not the best example I could have chosen, but they don't know a lot of stuff that would go into making the right decision on something like changing the price of a submission fee or whatever. It could be something that has nothing to do with money, or the structure of the company could be changing a word in a subject line on an email. Whatever it is, I'm pretty serious and very dedicated to making things as good as they can be. So I'm not the best at accepting criticism. However, somebody who has been around me a lot, knows the company well, somebody who I admire and respect and look up to, I am more likely to accept criticism from them because they're pre-qualified. Rob Shirelli, my best friend, works harder than I do if that's possible. He is much more of a perfectionist than I am, if that's possible. He takes everything very seriously in regard to his work, and that's why he gets to work with incredibly big artists. And so when Rob gives me feedback on Taxi, I listen because you know what? He was one of the people I actually approached. I took Rob and another friend of mine out for lunch at McDonald's and proposed the idea of Taxi to them in late, I think like October, November of 1991, and said, would you guys be interested in investing? And so Rob has been around forever. He didn't invest, by the way. He was just getting his career off the ground. I don't think he had enough money that he could afford to risk an investment in anything. And my other friend, who I won't mention by name, but we're still friends. I've known this other guy since 1975 or 76. Spent thousands of hours in control rooms with him and stuff. And he's like, I don't know. I don't think it's that great of an idea, blah, 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 blah. And so many times over the years, he's like, the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life was to not write you a check for $10,000 and invest in Taxi. Yeah, he would have made that money back and a nice profit on it. And he regrets it. But you know what? He too has been around all these years, but not as close as Shirelli is as far as the inner workings of Taxi. My other friend has been to a road rally or two, whereas Rob has been to 20 of them or more. So I do take criticism fairly well, constructive criticism from people that are qualified to give it. I guess I'm saying that the same should be true for you. You can't take every bit of feedback you get from every person totally to heart and change what you're doing because they may not know whereof they speak. But two great entities where you should embrace constructive criticism. One would be the Taxi screeners. If you could spend a day or a week under the roof here, you go, oh my God, I had no idea how good these guys are, what their resumes are, and how seriously you all take it. But the people who know us well, who have been to the office, even past screeners that I've fired. There's one guy in particular I can think of, and he was kind of a loud, hard to miss him in a room kind of guy. And that guy, I fired him because he was just too irresponsible. He wouldn't show up for shifts, and he was starting to become a little inconsistent with his feedback. One day I was at West LA Music, which back in the day was the store, like, if Lindsey Buckingham was going to go looking for a new guitar amp, he would have crossed the street from, it was right across the street from the studio I can't think of the name of right now, but big famous studio where Fleetwood Mac did a lot of work. And he would go in there. Anyway, one of the salespeople at that store that had been there for like 30 years and pretty much knew every rock star, like Joe Walsh was a hanging out friend of the guys, said to me one day, what do you put in the Kool-Aid at Taxi? I'm like, what? What the hell are you talking about? What Kool-Aid? What do you mean, what am I putting in the Kool-Aid? Well, he goes, so-and-so was in here the other day. And I said, so how's it going, your A&R gig at Taxi? And he goes, oh, I got fired. And I said, wow, I can't believe you got fired. Bummer. And he said, this guy who you just fired recently sat there for 5 minutes telling me what a great company you run and what a great guy you are. And I was astonished. You would think somebody would be so emotionally wounded and hurt that they would have nothing but bad things to say about me. So I can't remember now why I'm talking about that in the context of embracing constructive criticism. But, even if if the feedback I got from the guy who worked at West LA Music from that recently fired Taxi screener was, you need to be nicer to the people that work for you, or maybe their hours are too demanding or whatever. I would have listened to that feedback because it was somebody that was qualified to give the feedback because they were very much in the mix. So that's my bottom line in this overwrought 5-minute explanation of embracing constructive criticism is if the person or people or entity giving you constructive criticism has earned the right to do it by being directly involved in your life, your business, your production, your music, whatever, take the advice. Won't be right 100% of the time, but be a big enough person to say, I can't be right all the time. Maybe they're right. And sit on it, sleep on it for a day. Maybe you'll wake up tomorrow morning. And I hear this from members all the time about the critiques that the next day or a week later that they go, that screener was right. So there you go. Embrace constructive criticism. The next New Year's resolution, target your strength. Yes, target your strength. I understand there's a natural urge to try and conquer new mountains. Maybe you're bored with the genre you work in. Maybe you feel like you've mastered it. But you know what? Start there. Start there. If you're good, if you're a good downhill skier, try different mountains, different runs, different levels of difficulty. You're going to have more success honing your chops at being a downhill skier by doing that than you would be to just quit being a downhill skier and become a cross-country skier. They are two very different disciplines. I almost snapped off both my legs at the knee one time because I hit a cross-country trail wearing downhill skis out, like skiing the cat tracks at one of the big Colorado resorts. And all of a sudden, I hit deep, deep powder, and I was not prepared. I'd never skied in powder that was like over my knees, probably close to my waist. And I hit that stuff. I swear to God, I almost ripped both of my legs. I'm surprised I didn't leave the skis, my boots, and my shins in the snow and watch the rest of my body go flying. It was like skiing into concrete. So that taught me that, don't ski the cat tracks when you just got fresh champagne powder the night before to the tune of 2 feet, because you could be going into something that's physically very, very dangerous. Play to your strengths, and that is absolutely true for your music. Here's a great suggestion for a New Year's resolution, and obviously, go through and just pick some of these. Maybe I will give Liz this document so that she can. I'm trying to think of a way to have this be available to you. Maybe I'll include it in the newsletter. Anyway, be consistent. Treat music like a job by dedicating specific hours each week for your writing and producing. Hallelujah. I could not agree more with that. I can instantly think of 3 of our most successful members that treated it very much like a job. They also have something else which is uncommon in the world, but common amongst successful people, and that is getting up really early in the morning. Musicians, creative people, myself included, I think nothing about going to bed after 1 a.m. If I could be up at 2:30 a.m., doesn't faze me. I could have to wake up at 7 the next morning to, make a 9 a.m. meeting somewhere. I will still go to bed at 2:30 a.m. I'm a night owl. But these guys, Randon Purcell, no longer a taxi member, but still part of the family here, and he used to get up, I can't remember if it was 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning, and he would go down to his basement studio. He had a full-time job and had, I want to say, 3 sons that, ranged in age from like 9 to 15 or something. He and his wife had their hands full, I'm sure. Randa would get up at 4:30 or 5:30. I want to say 4:30 in the morning every day, and go down to his studio in the basement and get 2.5 hours worth of work done before his family woke up and came downstairs to eat their cornflakes and get ready for school every day. And I'm sure that by doing that, that he created that pattern, which carried over into other aspects of his music life. And guess what he does for a full-time living now? Music. He's a composer for a trailer company. He got that job, he says, because, I mean, obviously, he's a talented, extremely hardworking guy, and he loves the trailer genre. But I think that it was a case where he learned that skill, that developed a regimen that led him to become a reliable professional in the industry, that could meet deadlines, that could create a piece of music when he had no idea in his head. It's not like he sat around waiting for the muse to show up. Oh, that's lovely. I think I'll write that today. No, he's the kind of guy that said, okay, I owe these guys an orchestral hybrid trailer, and it's now Wednesday morning, and I told him I would have it there by lunchtime on Friday. So he would get up at 4:30 in the morning on Wednesday and go down there and just start playing and make it come out of him. So being consistent, having a consistent schedule. I can think of other members that do very much like what Randon does. Rather than waiting for the muse to come and tap you on the shoulder and say, let's go, baby, be consistent. Put yourself in the chair, and the muse will be required to show up because you already have. I'm looking for stuff that's not kind of repetitive. ChatGPT did give me a little repetition. Polish your branding. This is a great New Year's resolution. People who have steered themselves away from the record side of the industry, or being songwriters that are pitching their stuff to artists who are on major labels and have gone down the path of pursuing a career in film and TV music, generally speaking, do a pretty poor job. Generally speaking, not everybody, but most people don't do a great job of developing what their brand is. And what your brand is kind of what people associate you with. It's how you're perceived. And frankly, you can say what your brand is. There are a couple ways to accomplish having a brand. One is to say, I'm wearing the wrong shirt today. This one says, get your music to the right people, which was one of my earliest attempts at branding in probably late 1992. And I actually didn't come up with this. Another taxi member who lived locally here in LA that was in the advertising business or marketing called me up, said, come and hang out with me this Saturday. Let's brainstorm some ideas for your branding. Get your music to the right people. And then about a year later, I read a book that said, I can't even think of what it's called now. But anyway, it's part of a branding thing. Many, many marketing books have talked about it. And I spent months trying to come up with something that was unique. Get your music to the right people, pretty good. It tells you what we do, but it didn't really set us apart. And that's what you want, is something that sets you apart. And one of the books I read, and it's probably echoed in many other of the marketing books that I read, actually said something like, what do you do that nobody else does? Or what have you done first or done better? Are you the leader? And I went, ding, 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 ding. We are the world's leading independent A&R company. It tells you what we are, the world's leading independent A&R company, and it tells you that the world's leader, which we still are, thankfully, but at the time, nobody else was doing it. We were the first ones to have an independent A&R company on the entire planet Earth with, 7 or 8 billion people, and there was just one of us. So I could legitimately say we're the world's leader. Of course, then, in order to keep that moniker and keep that tagline and that branding, we had to work really, really hard over the last 33 years to keep that crown, keep that title, if you will. So what can you say about you and your music that makes you memorable and unique? Because if you think that it's the music, it's Probably not. I know that's crushing to tell that to a bunch of musicians, but they will, the people that will want to buy your music from you, license your music from you, put you in their catalog, they're going to remember how professional you are, how easy you are to work with, how consistently good your music is. Almost more importantly, definitely more importantly, how consistently usable your music is. You could have the greatest piece of music in the world, but if it's just not right for film and TV, it's another great piece of music, but not usable. But if you're consistently cranking out usable music that many different types of their clients could use, that's part of your brand. You've become Mr. or Mrs. Consistency. Another part of your brand is being super easy to work with and reliable. Somebody asks you, can you do this by Wednesday at lunchtime? Absolutely. And then you get it to them Wednesday by breakfast time. You're a winner. Those are the things that they remember about you. That becomes part of your brand. But you want other people to know about your brand. I just did an episode recently with our friends from Bandzoogle about why people in sync should have a website. People are like, dude, I make instrumental music for film and TV. Why do I need a website? There are a whole bunch of reasons in that episode. And you know what? You do want one central place for your potential customers to go to learn everything there is to learn about you. That is the place to put your music, put your credits, put your short, very succinct and impressive bio. And it doesn't have to be impressive like major accomplishments, but it has to be impressive in the fact that it's short and well crafted and to the point and makes people feel like they have gotten to know you by reading that bio. It's like, I could hang with that person. I could work with that musician, that composer. I like him. And they learn that by reading your 150-word bio that didn't start out with, I fell in love with music when I was 6 years old and heard the church choir. It happened to a lot of people. So a website, a bio, social media, it should be consistent. You'll notice that see the color of those speakers right there? Taxi yellow. That's one of the reasons. I mean, yes, I used to work at that studio. Shout out to Criteria in Miami. I worked there when I first started my career and have a very strong emotional connection to them. But look, we have a yellow cab. We have a yellow logo. If you could see the screen that I'm broadcasting from, the transition button is the same color as well. We have a yellow checker cab that sits in front of the road rally. I added yellow chairs to the stage this year at the road rally. It's all part of branding, and branding is visual, and it is also verbal. But our cab is everywhere. It's on our website. It's on our social media. So what is your brand? And if you think you can come up with it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, a day, or a week, you're a much smarter, better person than I am, because it took me a really long time, and I'd keep reading more books to get ideas. But what is it about you and your music that would create a memorable 3, 4, 5, 6 word phrase? Get your music to the right people. The world's leading independent A&R company. The world's leading independent A&R company. 6 words, okay? And that's a little long, frankly. But what's your brand compared to all the other taxi members out there, compared to all the other composers, compared to all the other artists? Once you figure that out, you should have a website where all of your stuff is. Don't use crazy kooky fonts that are hard to read. Use very straight ahead. A rule of thumb is sans serif fonts, meaning the ones that don't have little feet on the bottom of them, are best online for websites and social media. For print stuff, a 12-point Times New Roman font with black ink on a white background is much more readable and digestible for the people that are looking for you, want to learn about you, and want to work with you, than using a tiny little font that's like light gray on a white background. People do that. Or they use some flowery font that, because I'm Earth Mama and I want everybody to know that I'm into Earth Mama stuff, so I'm using this font. You can't even read what the letters are because they're so frickin' curly and cute and stuff. Great. If you're a hippie living in an ashram in 1968 just outside of San Francisco, use that font. If you want to be in the music industry, put a font in front of their face where they can instantly read it. Here's a little thing many people don't know, which is for English-speaking people, always justify to the left, with very few exceptions. I see this on websites all the time, and it's a mistake, and that is your headline should be center justified. The subhead underneath it should be center justified. But if you take your bio, which is 150, 200 words, and you center justify that as well, that means that the first letter of each line going down that paragraph or that document starts at a different place. When you make a left turn, most of the time, the road is going to be perpendicular to the one you're turning from. There are just some things that just work better and have habituated over the years with mankind. In English, Hebrew, it starts on the right side. So that's a problem. But for English speakers and for many other languages, not Hebrew, maybe I'm not even sure if Arabic goes right to left as well, but justify left. Make it easy for the eye to track it. If you don't try and use a wide array of colors, go online and look for a color wheel that tells you if you use green, then this is a complementary color. If you use blue, then that's a complementary color. And try and stick to no more than 3 colors, with one being predominant on your website, because that's part of your branding. And stick with it for a long time. Don't change it in 90 days. But I can't stress enough how important a website is, because to send people to SoundCloud for this, Instagram for that, somewhere else for something else, even if you have Linktree, it's still a pain in the butt. If I am searching Steve Broaden and I don't see stevebroaden.com come up at the top of the Google search, in the back of my tiny little brain, I'm thinking, kind of a faux pas on I'm not picking on Steve. He's probably got a website. These guys act pretty well together, but you know what I'm saying. It makes a bad first impression. If you are a professional in the music business, and by the way, this is the business, it is a business, act accordingly. So polish your branding. Here's a great one. It's a really easy New Year's resolution. Everybody watching this should adopt this one. Celebrate small wins. I'm always a little disappointed. Yeah, I'm a lot disappointed at the number of taxi members that don't use our forum at forums.taxi.com, because it's a great place to become woven into the fabric of the community, even if you're shy. Yeah, you'll be a lurker at first, but then eventually pop your nose in and go, yo, I've been a member for 2 years and I'm done being a lurker. I want to get to know you guys. Seem like a pretty cool crowd. It's a great place. The taxi forum is a great place. The first thing you'll see at the top of the first page of the forum is the forwards section. People love going on there and telling their fellow members, wow, I can't believe it. I got a forward on this particular song for this particular listing, and they'll post the listing number and probably even a link to the song. They want to brag about it, but they're not doing it in an obnoxious, braggadocious way. They're doing it like, hey, everybody, and everybody else will gather around you and give you a group hug virtually. So celebrate the small wins, and that helps you build a foundation to start celebrating bigger wins. Like, guess what? That thing that got forwarded 2 weeks ago, I just got an email from the library. They're signing it. Yay. That's like a media win. Celebrate it. Don't just sweep it under the rug. Enjoy it. Tell your family about it, because eventually that thing will probably end up in a TV show, and you will be able to have your family sit in the family room, order up a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken original recipe, and lots of napkins, and watch that TV show with your piece of music in it. They will get to share in the big win, which is your dream has come true for the first time. And there is nothing better than sharing that moment with the people that love you and that you love back. People will remember that. And you know what? Doesn't matter if you make 10 cents, $10, or $10,000 that on that placement. The rush of hearing your music in a TV show for the first time. I've never had it happen, but I do remember the first time I ever heard a song that I worked on in the studio play on a huge radio station. And I happened to have flown from Miami, where I was living at the time, to Chicago. My parents picked me up at O'Hare Airport. We were driving on Interstate 80, going by a sign that said Joliet, Illinois, next exit. And at that moment in time, I heard the opening notes for the Firefall song, You Are the Woman. That was the first record I ever got a credit on. I was very involved in that record. I learned so much. I'm still friends with a couple of the people in the band. I'm still proud to say that I worked on that record. I've got a gold and a platinum hanging up here at Taxi World headquarters from it. But the most memorable thing was hearing it on the radio for the first time. And I was sitting in the backseat of my parents' car, wiping tears out of my eyes. And they're like, what the hell's the matter with you? I wasn't able to speak yet to say, I worked on that. I spent 3 months in the studio with those guys, and I worked on that. And it's so gratifying to achieve a life goal at that level, that celebrate the small wins, because after those come the bigger wins, and then finally the big wins. And I guess the biggest win of all, if it's something that you desire, is to end up being able to quit your day job and just do music for a living for the rest of your life. What a great thing that would be. All right. I think I've got time for one or two more. Oh, here's a great one. New Year's resolution. Study popular placements. Pick TV shows that you got to like the show. It's hard to make yourself do this if you hate the show. I remember I used to not like the Kardashians very much, but I watched a lot of them. It was painful just to really understand, because it was probably one of the best produced reality shows. And a guy who was a screener here at Taxi worked on that stuff, and as a music supervisor at the network level. And I forced myself to watch the show because it really accelerated the speed at which I learned about how instrumental music was used. So many people that are new to Taxi, new to this part of the industry, think that, oh, they're going to listen to my, 102-second cue, and they're going to use the whole thing. And so you're worried about the intro and this and that, and just making every part of it perfect. And in your mind's eye, it never occurred to you that they're going to use 12 seconds on this show, or they're going to use 41 seconds in that scene, or 16 seconds here. It's extremely rare that they are ever going to use the whole cue. But you don't know these things unless you watch the kind of television that uses the kind of music that you make. And when you do that, you probably might not even realize at the time, but by osmosis, you're going to be learning things that will help you make better, more usable, more desirable, more valuable music. And it will help your career move forward much more quickly. So I cannot stress this enough. Watch TV, keep your phone on your lap, Shazam a lot of stuff. If it doesn't come up in Shazam, it probably came from a library, quite frankly. Some library stuff will show up in Shazam, but a lot won't. Anything that's been on a record label or a Spotify playlist will probably show up in Shazam. But it's also a good way for you to learn, oh, so that wasn't some major label band that I didn't know. That's an indie artist who got their stuff in a library's catalog. And wow, look at that. They've got a great placement on this episode of a really big TV show. But you'll learn about genres and almost through osmosis. You don't have to be that cerebral about it. You will start to learn about, I see what they did here. They just got in the car and they're driving down the road. This music is activity-oriented or action-oriented or connotates speed or travel in some way. I mean, you wouldn't want to use a very laid-back, legato, dreamy piece for going down a road if somebody is getting on the 101 freeway trying to make it to work in that scene. However, if somebody is driving on Pacific Coast Highway with the top down on their cute little Porsche that says Malibu on the license plate, you tell I love people that drive Porsches on PCH with Malibu on their license plate. It's a certain type of person, trust me. You will begin to understand that so that you can think about, do I see more scenes in TV shows with people driving, a nice, smooth, luxurious, I'm in no particular hurry drive on PCH with the top down and my sunglasses on? Or are most of the scenes we see about cars in traffic on a freeway and it's hustle bustle, got to get there. So you learn about which types of music are the most usable, the most often used. And if it's something that falls in your bailiwick, or is it ballywick? I think it's bailiwick. Make a lot of it and get it into a lot of different catalogs. That way you dramatically increase the chances of your music being used, and you build a financial foundation from the musical foundation from whence you came. So there you go. All right, I still have pages more of these, but I've been doing this for an hour and a half now. 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 58 seconds. So with that, I bid you guys a fond farewell, and I hope that you have a great 2025. I think the last year or two have been kind of a drag on everybody because of the economy and inflation and politics, crap. So I hope that we're entering a new era of people just feeling good about getting out of bed and living life again. And I sincerely hope that some of the stuff that I told you today is helpful in helping your career become a reality. May your dreams come true. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week on another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye-bye, you guys.